The Alaska Cannery Workers Association was a group of mostly Filipino and native Alaskan cannery workers, younger kids, college-age kids, who got together and filed 3 class action discrimination suits against cannery companies in Alaska. And essentially what they were challenging was the segregated eating facilities, segregated bunkhouses, inferior food, and the fact that all the people of color who were working as cannery workers worked as butchers and slimers, you know, doing the dirty work that paid the least. The machinists, the mechanics, the other, you know, bookkeeper, professional positions all went to white workers. And so I supported that effort. I helped work with the Alaska Cannery Workers on their publications, so forth. I have a pile of actually even these old layout sheets, I think, which were used to wax the back of them and so forth, sitting in my basement somewhere. So that was my first sense of connection to kind of worker improvement of workers, you know, working conditions, and through that I worked with Gene Viernes on exploring and doing a little bit of a history of the Alaska canneries. He was fascinated by history, and we worked together. There's actually an unpublished manuscript, very crudely written, which emerged out of a series which he wrote in the International Examiner on the history of Alaska Cannery. As you know, he was murdered at a young age, and that project sort of never really found its way to completion. But that was my first taste, and then I got a broader sense of the history of how, you know, the industry emerged and the union reform movement and so forth, and that, you know, got me thinking a little more about it. But as I began exploring Chinese American history, then I realized too that the unions, there were a lot of white working men movements which were union movements, but they were essentially racist in spirit, and so you began developing a little more refined sense of what, you know, of the union movement itself. I got a chance through working with people in the Alaska Cannery Workers Association to also work with some of the folks in the United Construction Workers Association, and there's a group called Women in Trades, and there was a whole slew of organizations that no longer exist, and I got a chance to again meet, and that was my introduction to a lot of folks who continue to be activists today, and some who of course are no longer around.